All right. Oh,
Welcome to our second part of our book, The Body of Christopher Creed by Carol Plum-Ucci. This is the second half of our book. I probably already said that, but we already did the first half, and we did a very good job, so hope you liked it.
and I would like to mention, Mrs. Core, if you are not looking and you are only listening, I would encourage you to look because we do have the centerpieces from before. It's an egg. So I just encourage you to look and, yeah, that's it. Beauty in its finest. All right, go ahead and ask the...
Okay, so our first question for this section is, do you think Bo as a person has changed his demeanor overall for the better?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
In my opinion, yes. From the beginning of the book, as much as we knew about Bo, he seemed like just another Boone, like a bad person in general. But now we've seen, like mentioned before, the lighter side of him, the polite side.
Oh, that is right.
That tucks Greg in at night, or that takes the blame for the phone call.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And helps Tori out in general. And yeah, I mean.
Yeah, and also like Bo and Allie get into almost a fight, and Allie's like very upset about him and like starts almost going sicko mode almost. And
About the phone call, yeah.
And then about taking the blame for the phone call. And so Bo being nice and not as hot headed like as before, like you have to be pretty hot headed to push someone off a bleacher. So instead he kind of like shrugs it off almost and like laughs about it instead of like getting into a huge fight about it. And then also he knows like he tells about the police chief's affair with Allie's mom, and like knows he's gonna get in trouble, like knows the police chief is obviously not gonna be happy about that. But instead of like his daughter still goes to the school, so instead of like hiding, running away, he just like comes because he knows what's coming to him, and he knows he got to be tough about it. So.
And I mean, his character arc from the beginning to the end, to this point at least, or to the end of the book, where he is set free, he is found not guilty of Christopher's murder. It's just, he seems like a better person in general. Like, we learn more about him, so he may have been this way the entire time, but from our perspective as the reader, and Tori's perspective as the main character, it feels like he's a better character.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and then also, like, gossip is a huge part of this book, like, from every kid gossips, and Tori, like, many times acknowledges how he doesn't like the gossiping. So, like, what are some ways that, like, you think that gossip, like, started huge problems for the characters?
Yeah, and, I mean, there's the whole, Bo telling Renee that, her father's having an affair, the police chief is having an affair, with Allie's mom, causing her to storm off and go tell her dad, and her dad ends up arresting Bo, which causes more problems in the book, because then that leads to him being questioned and more being found out, and in general just being not good, I guess, for the protagonists.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, and then, so, Jake, the jokes about, like, shooting Chris, and, like, Bo joking about it.
Behind Mama.
Yeah, behind Wawa. And, like, how at first everyone, like, took it as a joke, like, they took it as intended because Bo was joking. But then, towards the end, people, like, started to, like, because Mrs. Creed, well, you'd say, like, is almost, like, always wanted Bo for the murderer, like,
Yeah.
always wanted him. So, to kind of, like, not please her, but, like, kind of, like, go along with her narrative of how her son was lost, they, like, they take his words out of context and say how he shot Christopher and then dumped him in the lake, so in the river, so no one would find him ever. So that's like another example of how gossiping started problems. And I think that just ties back into how gossip is always a problem. Like it never leads to anything good, especially in like high school, like them being in new high school and whatnot. So.
And jokes about reference.
again, Mrs.
Oh,
Creed
oh,
being
oh.
honest.
Yeah, the comments with Mr. Ames as the principal. Thank you. Talking about how Mrs. Creed is like, well, we coined the term boonist, being that she's against the lower class. Seeing that she says that they could be murderers, that they are like lesser, I guess, which is totally unfair to the Boons, being that, well, some of them don't do anything, and she's seeing Bo, she's putting Bo as this example that he's the murderer, which is totally unfair to Bo.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, Mrs. Creed's comments with Allie, Tori, and Mr. Ames could be pictured as those rumors that sparked a lot of problems.
Yeah. Okay. And then I have another question for us to discuss, and it is Chris alive? Like, do you personally think it? And then what evidence is there to like prove him alive? And there was a quote in the book.
Yeah, I can read the quote.
So it's towards the end of the book, and it is in the notes. So.
Yeah, okay. So this is from Tori, being that he got these email responses. He said that this is the most likely reply to be from Chris Creed in disguise. It goes, Dear Tori, while your story fares somewhat intriguing, you have split over 200 verbs from their modifiers and started as many sentences with a preposition. Use your spell checker and or stick to songwriting. Very snarky comment, something that Chris would say. And so even Tori recognizes that this, in the book, that this most likely is Chris that commented. And it goes even further on the next page. Oh, that was page 245, this is page 246. Talking about how the evidence is there to say that Chris is still alive, and how comparatively, comparatively, it's very, comparatively, there's evidence that he's still alive. That from this information that he received from Victor Adams, that he could be alive. And yes. And to clarify, the one from before is from Michael Alex Adams. So, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean that is a very good point. And then again, we don't really get a lot of closure per se on the exact, like, whether or not set in stone.
It's thrown up in the air. It's
Exactly.
thrown up in the air.
So it could also be interpretation, and I feel like based on the notes in that section, I would think he's alive.
Mm-hmm. And it talks about, Tori's mom talks about previously in the book that how he, people have a drive to be alive. People don't just give up like that, and if they do, it's in extreme circumstances like depression. And so even though he had a very terrible life, she says, even though he had a very terrible life, it's not that he's going to give up that, give up that easily, because that's just not what people do.
Yeah, a very good point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then also I just wanted to bring up about the psychic and like the readings that they were given about, and then how eerily like accurate and similar they were. Even, like they got some details off, but like how overall how
accurate it was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was almost terrifying, and so like how he went to he'd be alone, and then
when he found the body.
Exactly, and then it was because Aloe was upset.
Yeah.
And like how would the psychic predict that?
And the psychic said that they would find it in the woods, and I mean, yeah, and the psychic who was interested in how they were looking for Christopher Creed. Clearly, while Tori said that they seemed fake, clearly it didn't seem terribly fake, and how they had links to Isabella being Tori's girlfriend in quotation marks, and how, I mean, it kind of all tied together with him going to the forest alone, with him finding the Indian spirit that led him to the the burial ground, which then found the body of Bob Haynes, which is a whole different story in its own. And so, yeah.
So overall, that's our presentation wrapped up. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Let's end it with a high five.